Welcome everybody back to our Workflow Wednesday this month for June, and we're glad to have you guys back. We are going to be continuing the topics for Flexi 21 and the new tools and features for Flexi 21. So we're glad to have you here, and we're glad that you've joined us live here on Wednesday. And this month, we're going to be talking about the variable data tool, which expands on some tools that are already in Flexi, but makes them more powerful and really helps you get into variable data. We want to just remind you as well, as we're starting out here, I'm going to be in the chat for the next half an hour to an hour, answering any questions that you might have. So if you have any questions about variable data as it comes up, or Flexi and Flexi 21, feel free to ask those in the chat down below or in the comment section. We'd be glad to help you guys out. So without further ado, let's jump into the variable data right in Flexi. So let me share my screen with you and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Flexi, and I've got a job pulled up here, and we're going to be talking about variable data. Now, if you're at all familiar with Flexi, you're probably familiar with the auto serialize, which would allow you to take, say, like a hotel room number and set up an auto serialized setup. So you could create a bunch of those and it would show up on screen. And that was pretty powerful and pretty good, but it's kind of limited. You could bring in a file with names and a few other things. You could do some replacing of text and stuff, but it wasn't very powerful. It had some uses, but it was very limited. So we're wanting to expand on that and make this a lot more powerful and a lot more useful to our users. So we decided to get into variable data. And with our new variable data tool, you're going to see that this is going to be a lot better. Yeah. So let's just walk through the steps here, just kind of set the stage here as to what we're doing. So first of all, this is the finished product up above here in my file. I've got this one all set up to go, ready to go. But we're going to walk through the process of kind of what I did to create this, and that way you guys kind of see what's going on here in this particular instance. So let's get started. First of all, you're going to want to open up your variable data toolbar. That can be found under the File menu by clicking on Variable Data. Now, if I have already turned on, if I click it off, you'll notice that right up here in the top, that goes away. And you've got a couple options in here. So you've got an option for Convert to Variable Data, Edit Variable Data. We can open a template if we've saved one. We can save it, the active template as or save the active variable as a template. Then we can also save the current document as a template, and then we can preview. The ones that we're probably going to be using most is going to be Convert and Edit, and then going to be using our preview. Now, again, you can save this as a template if you want to bring other things up. So that works out really well if you need to do that. All right, so to start out with, we're looking at trying to create a business card that looks similar to this. We've got our web address. We've got a phone number. It's going to be a location, an email, name, and then job position. And then we'll also throw in a picture here. So we're going to also set up a picture and get that going with our variable data as well. So this is all going to be populated with custom information that we have set up in another file. And we'll go over that as well. So to kind of get started out with, first of all, let's take a look at the file that we're using in order to get to this position. So I want to show you the data file from Excel. So here's our Excel sheet. Now, I don't have a lot of names in here and a lot of information. This is a pretty small example, but this can be expanded to almost an infinite amount. So basically what I've done here is I've set up an Excel sheet with the first row set up with my name, position, email address, my phone number. I have a set here for picture and website. Now I've left the picture blank, and we'll go over that here in a minute, but for now we'll just leave this blank. And then you're going to save this as a CSV file, preferably. I think we support one other file. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. But I'm going to save this as a CSV file so that the variable data template software can pull this in. So I've got my information here. Note that the information in here, or these headers, are important. We're going to want to make sure that we use these exact headers. So we're going to be referring back to this Excel document as we go through the process. So I'm going to minimize this for a second. And you'll see here that I've typed some of these things up, and then I've converted them to variable data. So let's go ahead and get started and just start typing up some text and kind of recreate this the way that I've done this so that you guys can see the step-by-step process. So first of all, I'm just going to start by typing up some text. So I'm going to start down here. I'm going to say email, and we'll rearrange these later and get them right. We'll put in a phone number. We'll just use the same one. And lastly, we're our location. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab these items as well. Oh, looks like we got our, let's get rid of that background there. Makes it easier to select things. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change these. I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool to kind of mimic the same color as above, which is this one. All right, so we got those all in the same color. And then I'm going to go ahead and just grab these and kind of line them up to, I don't know, something that seems about right. There we go. And maybe pull this a little closer. So right now we're just kind of getting these things kind of lined up where we want them to be, just so that when we convert them to variable data, we don't have to do a whole lot in terms of adjusting when it comes to the size of or the alignment. So now up here, I'm just going to use two different texts. I'm going to say job position, and let's do this all in caps. And then I think we're going to go to the medium, and then we'll type up name, surname. Okay. And so let's just grab this and pull this down just a little bit. And then we'll grab this guy and let's grab that color, the darker color here. And there we go. And then let's make this a little bit larger, kind of like we've done here. So we'll just make this a little bit bigger, and then this will be a smaller. There we go. Okay, that looks about right. I'm not going to be worried about it being too perfect at the moment. We're just going to set that up. So now we've got that set up, and then I'm going to drag, and we're just going to create a box here. Let's about like that. Maybe make that a little bit wider, maybe position up a little bit higher. There we go. Okay, so we've got our things drawn. Again, this is not the super important part of what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to get these elements into the design so that we can convert them into a variable data format. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just start with the name up top here. So I'm going to click on the text. I'm going to come up here to my variable data toolbar, and I'm going to click convert to variable data. So I'm going to pull this toolbar down here just so that it's easy for you guys to see which ones I'm clicking on in case my camera gets in the way up there. Convert to variable data. Now, when I do that, Design Central changes a little bit. Now, you've got two very important things in here that we want to take a look at. First of all is the keyword. The keyword is very important. And what this does is this correlates directly with this value that we have here. So in this particular case, we need to put in name. That's what we need to put in here. So when I click on this and I go to variable data, I need to type in name, capital N-A-M-E. I need to copy it exactly. So I put in a couple examples with uppercase and lowercase. That is very important. So when you're setting this up, one of the really important, crucial things that you do is you got to make sure that your names up here are properly labeled. So we want to make sure it's name, position, email. We got to make sure that these set up right. If we don't, what's going to happen is that our variable data, when we load it, it's not going to load in properly. So knowing that, let's take a look. So now what we've done is you can see that now we've created a variable data field. So I've set it, the keyword to name. Now I'm going to set this surname. I'm going to leave it there. This is a little bit less important in terms of our string. This is kind of more of a name string. The keyword is the really important one here. Now we do have a couple of options here. We can change the size of the box that we want, so we can increase the height or the length or the width. And we can choose a couple options down here. So for example, I can say scale to fit or proportional. So if I want the size of the text to squeeze in and fit the box that I have set here, it's going to go ahead and do that for me. So it'll adjust the size of the text to match the box that I've created. I'm going to hit apply to apply the changes. And then the thing is here is if I want to, I can zoom in, I can click on this little red box here, and I can drag it away. So see, it doesn't really change my text, but it allows me to increase the size in which this field will be accepted. So this is nice where if you know that you're going to have some longer fields, you may want to, drag this over to give you a little bit more space if you don't want the font name to change. I can do that with this one as well. So let's go ahead and do this one. Let's convert this to variable data. And we're going to put in here exactly what it shows here. So in this case, I just have position. So this easy way to do this is just do a copy right from your data file, paste it in. Then that way you don't have to worry about whether you're getting everything right. Now, this tool automatically identifies the type of variable data field based on the item that you select. So for example, it knows that this is a text field because it was text when I started it. In a minute here, when we go to this one, when we set up our bitmaps, we're going to set that up a little bit differently. You can also do this as a QR code if you want to. So if you wanted to set up a QR code, you would simply grab some text, and maybe we could do that as an example here. Well, I don't have it set up in my file, so we can't do that. But what you do is, for example, we would just grab this text, convert it to a QR code first, adjust the size, get everything ready. So we want this to be our QR code, and then we would convert this to a variable data. And it already understands that this is a QR code, and then obviously the toolbar really doesn't change that much in Design Central, but it knows that this is a QR code, so that when the input or the data is input, it will change it as a variable, or it'll change it as a QR code instead of text or something like that. So the QR code will change based on the data that's provided. So let's go ahead and undo here. We'll get that back to a number. Okay, let's grab the email and let's do the same thing. So this is going to be really simple. In this case, we'll grab here, we'll go to our email, we'll copy and paste that in as our keyword. In this case, it's lowercase, so we want to just be aware of that. Now, again, I'm going to drag this out because I know that my email field is probably going to be a little bit longer. Again, if you wanted to force it to be smaller, you can do that, and it'll actually reduce the size of the text and scrunch it down to a size where it'll actually fit in there. So if you want it to force fit in, it'll adjust the size of your text automatically in order to fit it in that little box. So just be careful with that as well, because that can also cause some other things to happen where it might be too small. So you just want to experiment with that a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to go with your location. Let's just go do the same thing. Again, this is really kind of a setup process at this point. We're creating a template for the rest of them to follow as we dump in the data. So location. Okay, in this case, I think we want to add a field. And this will be great because we can actually just put this in here right now. So we'll say location. So we haven't added this yet, but I wanted to add this. So we'll just add a couple fields here. So we'll say location, and then we'll say Utah for one, and then maybe Colorado, and maybe Texas, and New Mexico. Kind of a diversified company here. We're all over the place. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that file. And now I can say this will be my location. So we can copy that. Paste that in. That'll be my location, and hit apply. All right, so we got that, and we'll do the same thing with the phone number here. So we'll edit the variable data, go back to here, copy this, and paste it in here. Hit apply, and our email address. This is actually our website. So I think in this case, what we'll probably do is, do we have a field for that? Yes, we do. Great. So I just put in some different websites here just for fun. Okay, convert to variable data. We'll get rid of this text and paste it in. Okay, so now we've set that all up. So now again, we've got all the text set up. That's pretty easy, not too hard. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to click on this box here. Now, in order for the software to recognize that it needs to insert a bitmap into this location, remember, the variable data tool automatically recognizes what that object is based on its identity. So for example, in this case, it recognized this as text, and so it was replacing a string for a string. So in this case, I need to change this or convert this into a bitmap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the square, go to bitmap, and say rasterize. And I'm going to want to set my quality, because whatever I set the quality of this bitmap, that's going to be the quality of the bitmap that gets inserted. So I'm going to say 150 dpi for now. That should be okay. And hit OK. Now we can see if we click on this, it's been converted to a bitmap, because in Design Central, we see the bitmap options. So that's great. And now my variable data tool becomes available. Before, it was grayed out, and so I couldn't actually click on it because it was just a shape. Now I can click on it, and it automatically knows. And in this case, see how it's removed the string? That's okay. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to put this in here. Even though we don't have any pictures in here, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in, paste it in here, and apply it. Okay, so now here's going to be the theory behind what's going on here. This particular field is going to look for a folder path. So when it looks for the picture section, we're going to need to you either A, have to insert a picture folder path in here. And the way that you would do that is, if you wanted to do this manually, you can do that. I can just go to my desktop, for example, and I have a folder of images that we're going to use for this example. Okay, so we've got some images. I can just go to click this image, go to properties, and I can get the folder path right here. I can copy it, and I could put that folder path right here. So I can just say paste. Okay, and then that's going to be my folder path for that image. And when we use the variable data tool, when it pulls this from the file, it's going to go ahead and pull the image from that location and insert it in. Now, I'm going to still leave this blank, and we'll mention why. Because the way that I've done my images is I've labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're corresponding to the list that I have here. Okay, so I've got my names and I've got everything here that I want. And so I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop them in, and that's how that's going to work. In fact, while we're at it, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We actually got six here. So why don't we go ahead and add a couple people? So add Amy, and she's going to be a salesperson. And we'll just give her an email of amy@sales.com. Her extension, her phone number. In this case, it's going to be, oh, I typed in the exact same thing. Okay, and we're going to leave that blank. Web address, we'll just put www.sales.com. And we're going to put her in Utah as well. And then let's put in Nathan. He's going to be tech support. Okay, and www.techsupport.com. And he is also in Texas. Okay, great. So now we save this, and we've added a few entries. And because I have these labeled 4 and 5, entries number 4 and 5 are going to be with those two. So let's go back to our graphic. Let's grab this. We've got this set the way we want it to. Now let's go ahead and jump into previewing. So I'm going to select the entire thing, and let's get into assigning the data. So grab this, and then we're going to edit variable data. So click on edit. Now this is the window that you're going to get, and I'm going to clear this out here. All right, and so in this first one, you're going to see that there's a lot of stuff in here that I've already added. We're going to reload this in here in a second. So I can actually add new fields if I want to, and edit this all manually if I want to. So if you don't have Excel and you don't want to necessarily do all this work here, like again, maybe you don't have Excel, or you don't have access to this program or some other program that can create this, you can actually do it manually right within the software. So I can hit new, I can create a new field, and I can put it in all manually. Now, that's kind of a bummer, and it's very time consuming. We wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but we give you the flexibility to be able to do it just in case you need to. So that's available to you if you want to. We're going to ignore that method. For now, we're going to use a data file. We're also going to check this first box that says keywords are in the first row. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, remember how I needed to convert that into a CSV? I'm going to do that now. If I hit load data file, the types of files that it's looking for is a .txt or a .csv. So before I do that, I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to go into Save As, and I'm going to change this into a CSV. So comma delimited, that's fine. All we care about is that it's a CSV file. Or you could convert it into a .txt. So CSV is fine. and we'll call that variable data file is fine. We'll hit save. Okay, and now on my desktop, I have a variable data file.csv. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to say load data file. Scroll down. Here's my variable data.csv. I'm going to open that. And now it pulls in all the information for this particular file here. So in this particular case, it's doing a little bit of a duplicate because I already have a design in my. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually grab this, and we'll just delete it so that we have just this one. This should help us out here. Yeah, so that helps us out a little bit. Doesn't give us so many fields up here that we're working with. So you'll notice that here that the edit variable data tool automatically recognizes all the different things that we added in here and lists it. So if I want to add a new entry, so I could put an email address, whatever I want to, add these in manually, or when I load the data file, like this, I can decide which one fits where. So for some reason, it didn't load this name in. So I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to map it to something. So for some reason, it looks like the name got mixed up a little bit. That's okay. It's still listed here. I'll just click on name, pictures with picture, position with position. Everything looks like it's okay. If we hit OK, now it loads in all of our data. So we can make this window a little bit bigger so we can kind of see some of this stuff. So it's labeled everything properly. It's got all of our websites. It's got all of our phone numbers and emails. And it's going to insert all of this data, names, positions, locations, website, phone, email. It's going to put all of this in here for us. Now, remember, we're still nothing on the picture. So we're going to deal with that right now. So let's open up our images. Okay, so I've got this file here, and what I'm just going to do is, because I named them 1, 2, 3, 4 in a consecutive manner, and I kept my names in order, all I have to do is grab these. I'm going to grab the first image, so image 1, and I'm just going to drag it to this first box. Now I'm making sure to put my cursor right next to the number 1 so that it puts them in the correct order. Let go, and you can see it's all automatically filled in all the image numbers for me in the correct order that I wanted them in. I'm going to hit OK, and now it's filled in all the data. Now, nothing magical happened there in terms of the image. We're still in template mode. So we're actually looking at the template, not the final result. So if we want to preview this, all I have to do is click on my little eye here, and then I can search through my index. So I can cycle through these, and I can see how all the information changes for each one of these. Now, my images here are probably not the greatest. I need to make sure that my images are all the same size and things like that when I bring them in, so that I make sure that they format correctly. Some of these images were not the same size, some were taller than others, so that's kind of my mistake there. But you can see that it still fills that information in. So I've got all these set in here. I can preview them. I'm going to hit X. I don't need to preview them anymore. And now I'm ready to print these. Now, here's the great thing about the way that this is done. All this data is stored within the software. Now, if you remember, if you've ever used the auto serialize or even the step and repeat, when you make multiple copies inside of the design space and then send them to production manager, it would always increase the size of the file because it was having to process the entire thing as a whole. The great thing about this is that it's only processing the basic template here, which is really, really small in size. So when I select all of this and I go to rip and print, now, just like the contour cut tab appears and reappears, in this case, I have a variable data tab. Because I selected a job with variable data, my variable data tab shows up. It shows me all the same data that I had before, and I can apply the variable data and preview it. So these options might be unchecked. If I uncheck these options, we can kind of see what happens here. I just get a generic option. But if I choose to preview and turn on or apply the variable data, now I can see each and every one of them inside of here. And because the template is the same, we're not really creating a bigger file size. The production manager and the rip and print is doing all the work for us, which is really great. So this is going to be a fairly small size job to run in terms of size. I can place this anywhere I want, and I can hit send. One last thing that we wanted to talk about as well is doing it from Production Manager. So if you've saved a template, you can save this as a .fs file, and you can do the same thing from Production Manager. So if I pull up my Production Manager here, I can import a .fs file. So you can see this is called variable data example.fs. That's what we called it before. I double click on it, and here's my variable data tab up here. Same information. I can load the data file. I can do everything right here, just like I did in Rip and Print. So if you already have a template that you've created and you just need to reprint a bunch of stuff, you don't have to open up Flexi necessarily. You could just bring that FS file right into Production Manager, load the data file, send along its way, and just print it right from there. Now, one thing that you can also do is we can add a contour cut. So let's say we want to contour cut this guy. So let's grab this and let's throw a contour cut on here. One of the things that I would recommend that if you apply a contour cut, so we just went to Effects, Contour Cut, I hit Apply to accept it. And then one of the things that I would recommend that you do is if you're going to do a contour cut to something like this, I would go ahead and, after you apply the contour cut, go ahead and right-click on the contour cut and separate it. That way, the contour cut is a separate element from the rest of it. That actually just makes the variable data tool work a little bit better, and it doesn't cause any issues with the picture or anything like that. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. You might want to keep an eye out for. So that's great. If we change this option here to proportional and hit apply on our picture, and then we go back to preview, that should fix our problem that we had, despite my images not being all the same size. Now they're all fit. Now it did stretch them a little bit, and that's kind of it's not really great from a look or way they look, but at least it fills out the image. So if your images are slightly off and not too bad, you can set that option in the variable data to scale it, but just not scale it proportionally. So you've got some options there for that. So that is the variable data tool. Real easy, not too hard. The main thing that you really want to focus on is when you're building your template, you set up your template as text. So these are all going to be text fields. This is going to be a picture. You could do data matrix, anything in here, Braille, barcodes, QR codes, data matrix codes, anything you want, that can be in there. You set your text style up the way that you want it to be. You can set up your images, whatever you want that to be. The real important key is that you check your keyword. Your keyword has to match up with your CSV file or your Excel file exactly. If it doesn't match up exactly, what tends to happen is you might get a few errors or the data just won't show up at all. So if you ever have that problem while running the variable data tool, you load the data and you're like, well, something's missing. Nothing loaded up in my position section. I would go back, check the header in your Excel sheet, and then I would go back and check here and make sure that the keyword is properly labeled so that you know that that's correct. And then make sure and apply it, of course. So that's going to be your variable data tool in a nutshell, real quick. Again, we're really excited about this. We've had several customers that have had tested this out, and it has helped their productivity immensely We think it's a really powerful tool to get you involved into some variable data stuff, which would be a powerful and efficient way to get a lot of this kind of decal work type done that normally in Flexi would probably have to be done by hand, or to a limited extent, you could maybe use some of the auto serialized stuff. So again, we really like this tool. We really think it's a powerful tool. Get in there and use it, explore it, try some things out. Again, I brought this design up right from Sign Design Elements from the cloud. So if you have a subscription, this is a free graphic that I downloaded right off their website. Super easy and convenient. So be aware of that. So if you have a subscription, check that out as well. But get in there, use this tool. If you have any questions, again, I'll be here for another half an hour to 45 minutes or an hour or so. So feel free to ask me any questions. I'd love to help you out. If you have any questions about this or about anything else, feel free to do so. Can't wait to talk to you guys. Again, really excited about Flexi 21 and the new features. Join us next month. We'll be talking more 21, Flexi 21, more new features. So don't miss out on that. You guys have a great day and enjoy your month. We'll see you later.